F1 podcast with special guest Mook.
Hello!
Welcome in, Mook. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not doing too bad. Not doing too bad at all. We are here
Awesome.
to discuss your Silverstone experience.
Indeed. Where
Something,
to start?
yeah, something I've not been privileged enough to do is attend an F1 race. I imagine it's quite the buzz leading up to a race, let alone going.
Yeah. Let's start with before actually going. So I usually take Silverstone week off from work. Usually the whole week leading up to it and then a couple of days after, just because you need that time to come down from like the adrenaline rush in a sense. But I camp every year. So I'll camp at Woodlands, which is just literally like 5 minute walk from Stowe. So you get into the circuit pretty quickly. And yeah, it's just like it's so easy, but it's bloody expensive. So you have to save up for like all year if you're like people like us, because it isn't cheap. But I have to say European races in general tend to be more value for money because you get a lot for your money. You don't just get F1, you get the whole package. So you get your F2, F3, Porsche Super Cup. This year we had the Heritage cars racing as well, which had Adrian Newey driving one of them. You've also got all the aircraft over the weekend, parachutists, Red Arrows. And then to top that off, every evening they have some musical performances in the evening. So you're entertained from like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning until 11 at night. So when you consider I spent £350 on my ticket because I didn't go general admission, I thought if it's going to rain and I'm camping, I'm going to want some shelter just for most of the time I'm there. I thought it was
Yes.
really well spent, considering I was there from Wednesday until Monday.
So that's quite a long weekend for that sort of money, to be fair.
Yeah.
And then, do you look at all the
Got
stuff that's coming up as well, like you said about the F2 and stuff? Will you look at that before you buy your ticket, or just you go to the race anyway and anything's bonus?
yeah. I do watch the other support races. The previous couple of years, I've been watching Lando Norris actually coming through as well. So I've been watching him for quite a while, and was getting an inkling him and George Russell would be stepping into F1 fairly soon. So it's actually a good way to see people going up through the ranks. And if you like motorsport in general, I really recommend you watch the support races because there's some cracking races. And there's no love lost between two drivers when they're trying to go wheel to wheel around cops or something. They're going at it as though it's like the last race they'll ever do. But if you go for the F1, I would say it's quite expensive. But if you go for the F1 and all the entertainment that's added after that, you get pretty good value for money. So, as an example, this year I've got them written down so I don't forget. Friday night, Razorlight was playing on the main stage. Saturday night, you had a DJ called Pat. He was pretty good. And then Craig David after him. And then Sunday, you had Soul to Soul and Furnace and the Fundamentals. I never heard of them, but considering you get all those bands as well, you kind of like get a mini festival and your motorsport at the same time. So, but when I buy my ticket, I'll buy it for F1, but I also think, well, I get all the other stuff on top of that, and I love motorsport anyway, so I will watch it.
Yeah. So do you watch every race that goes on that weekend or over that time period?
Pretty much everything. This year, I think, I'm just trying to think what races I got into the circuit Friday, probably about 10 minutes after the F3 practice session started. So that was just after 8:30, I think it was. I tend to get up quite early because when you're camping, you'll end up queuing for the toilets and the showers and stuff. So I'll get up quite early, do what you have to do for your human bodily functions, then
Oh,
have some breakfast, and then I'll mosey my way into the circuit. So I'll watch all that. And this year I actually had a bit of a plan in my head of where I wanted to sit, because when you get a grandstand ticket for the Sunday, you get your guaranteed ticket on a Sunday, but that also means you can roam all the other grandstands for the rest of the weekend. So
Right.
Friday, I thought, right, I'm at camping. I get on at Stowe. I'm going to sit at Stowe. And I know whereabouts I want to sit because, as some of you may be able to see, there's some pictures on the screen of cars that I've taken pictures of. So I'll try and sit where I can get a good view over the catch fencing, so I can get some good shots of the cars. So I sat on the exit of Stowe to take these pictures that you can see now. And it's actually quite interesting to see the different lines they all take, and cornering, how quickly they come out of the corner as well. And I keep that in mind where I'm sitting, because you're well and good like sit near a straight, but you don't really tend to see an awful lot. Most of the action happens in an exit of a corner. So I kept in mind I wanted to go to Stowe. I also wanted to sit at Cops, and then on Sunday I was on the start finish straight in Abbey, so I got to see the cars off the start finish straight and then go bolting into Abbey. You can actually see them go all the way around Village and all that complex there as well where I was sat. So it's, if you do your research, you can pick a really good seat and get quite a lot of the action in for all your money. But yeah, you can roam all the way around the circuit, and I've been quite a few number of years now, and I've pretty much seen action at every portion of Silverstone. So if you plan to go once, I would recommend planning where you want to sit. If you go for general admission, you have to get there early if you want to bag a good spot. And now they've got fast ticket passes. You can get in even earlier, so you can bag a spot that you really want to sit at. Sundays, it's absolutely crazy. People do queue up to get in at like 6 o'clock in the morning to get that ideal spot they want to sit at. So it does require a bit of planning, but it's worth it.
It was record attendance this year as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, you could definitely tell as well. Because I was there, and I know a few people that were going as well. There's a couple of people I said, like, we'll meet up after all the racing's done, because we both want to see everything, because we're pretty big petrol heads. And we both agreed Saturday's attendance was like the busiest we'd ever experienced, and we'd all been quite a few times. And you can tell when it gets busy when your mobile phone signal doesn't work. Usually it's fine on a Saturday, but because there's so many people there, the masts can't cope, and they actually had an extra one stationed for it. But considering the record attendance, it just couldn't cope. And Sunday, you stood no chance getting any signal. And I think I managed to get signal probably about 6:30 in the evening, I reckon it was, when everyone eventually filtered out. Because also you had the tennis and the cricket on as well, which again on the big screens at Silverstone they were actually showing. So I sat on the start finish straight when we all invaded the track on Sunday, and then I was looking at one big screen for the cricket and then the other big screen for the tennis. It's like, you can't get much better than this, sitting on the start finish straight on International Pit Straight and watching two other sports at the same time. It was quite surreal.
Yeah, I can't imagine the tent feels very welcoming after an event like that. It's not the first
Yes.
to.
Yeah, it was absolute mad weekend. I mean, last year was absolutely roasting hot. This year was really quite hot. You've got to be careful with how much sun you have as well. For those that haven't experienced Silverstone before, it's kind of like its own little microclimate. And I recommend, if you go for the weekend, take clothes to cover you in case it rains, clothes to cover you in case it's cold, and clothes to cover you in case it's piping hot, because I can guarantee you probably need all three of those types of clothing. And I was speaking to someone on Sunday, and they forgot to bring a jacket, and they didn't realise how cold the grandstand can actually be, because all the air, because it was a former airfield, all the air was being traveling through the circuit, and it just goes straight through the grandstand. So you actually get quite cold unless the sun comes out as well. And then when you go into your tent, it's like absolutely sweltering hot, and you're like trying to faff everything around just to try and get some air circulating inside it as well. So yeah, it's all part of the experience, though. It's good fun.
It does sound good fun because I imagine a lot of heat comes off the track as well, especially when the cars are going around it.
It does. And when you go on the track, you actually, even when you don't go on the track, you actually see how many marbles are on the circuit. I mean, you can see them to a fashion on the television when you're watching it at home, but you don't actually realize how much rubber drops off. And because they've got the support races as well, you've got all that extra rubber that's dropping off all the F2 cars, the F3 cars, Porsche Super Cup, and they even have, excuse me, I think I might burp in a second. They also have road sweepers stationed all the way around the circuit. And after every support race or F1 race, they go and do their little race on the track just to try and clear it up a bit. So they try and keep it as clean as they can for all the support races, but there's so many marbles, and the hotter it gets, obviously more degradation there is, and more souvenirs you can get on a Sunday.
Souvenirs.
Yeah, every year I bring a bit of rubber home. That sounds wrong.
That really
Move
does
on,
sound
move
wrong.
on.
So, you felt the heat. Can you smell
Yes.
petrol? Can you smell the cars?
Oh god, yeah. Especially the F1, obviously not so much. But the F2 and F3, you can smell them, and the heritage cars, oh my god, you can smell it before you see it. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's just like the sound of all those cars are just immense. But when you smell them, it's like a whole different kettle of fish. And like, if you're lucky enough to be able to get an inside track ticket,
Yeah.
so you can actually go inside the circuit and you can see the heritage cars actually inside the track station, ready to fire up and go out on the circuit. I did that last year, and when they start them up, the smell of the fuel is just beautiful. I'm like, oh my god, you could like blow your mind with the smell that goes through your nostrils, but it just smells so nice. And I think the F3 probably smell the best out of the rest, in a sense. But yeah, it just, all your senses just go on fire.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
You did a live stream as well, didn't you, over the weekend?
Yes.
And you were like, can people hear me over the cars? And the cars were double, and that was only the Porsche Super Cup at the time.
Yeah, Porsche Super Cup. God, yeah, they're loud. So when I did the live stream on Twitch, I wanted to like give you guys an experience that follow me on Twitch as well, just a flavour of what it's like. At that point, the internet started to come back, so I thought, right, I'll risk it for a biscuit. I'll see if I can stream. And then I thought, I don't have headphones on because usually I'm at my computer at home with headphones on, so I can hear things that are going on. So I had no idea if you guys could hear me. Luckily, you were able to hear me because you typed back just to let me know that the sound was all right. But when you go by Luffield on the end, this is where like the fan zone was, because they all loop around from the Wellington Straight round Luffield and then go on to the National Pit Straight. The sound just, it lasts so much longer, and it actually takes me back to when we had the normally aspirated engines, and that's the sound like hit you in the chest when the F1 cars were coming along, and you felt that before you even like saw the cars, and you could hear the cars like all the way around the circuit. So it kind of gave you a flavour of what F1 used to be like and the noise that came off them. But yeah, I always get really excited when I hear any of the cars go around. But when you stand at that section, and that's general admission as well, you can actually see them like they get quite slow, but then they pick up the speed when they go onto the National Pit Straight. Then the engine kicks in again. You're like, "Ooh, this is really exciting!" And yeah, for a petrol head, it's got to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to watch the stream on the telly, so I had it in 50 inches and in like surround sound.
Oh, nice.
Even I was buzzing, and that was from Owen.
Yeah, it's God, it's just worth like if you can invest in like a couple of like half decent speakers just to watch at home, it's worth it because you get part of the experience from it. And also when you're at the circuit, you obviously get like the energy from all the people that are watching it as well. But I think one advantage with the new F1 cars is you can actually hear an awful lot more. So you can hear the crowd, you can hear when someone's locking brakes, or you can hear when they're going to the gravel trap, whereas you couldn't hear that before. So it kind of gives you a more three-dimensional feel. And
Yeah,
that's quite exciting. Although I do miss the old engines, um, it has its pros and cons. And at the end of the day, it's about the racing, isn't it? If the cars are a little bit quieter, does it really matter that much? Not really in the grand scheme of things. Um, it would be lovely if they were louder, but the world is changing and we've got to be seen to be doing something a bit different. Um, and yeah, if they were louder but they couldn't overtake each other, no one would be watching the F1, would they?
no, because I mean, you say they're a bit quieter, but they're not like a normal road car. They are still pretty loud for a racing car.
Yeah, they are. And I've been every year since they've done the regulation change, and they've definitely got louder every single year. And yeah, you can hear them coming a bit further than when you could see them previously. It was just it it was a bit of a joke that like the first year we were there, it's like, oh, these are the Formula E cars on the circuit, not actually the F1 cars because they were that quiet.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm not quite sure what they've done because I'm not 100% into the technicalities. I don't really have time to keep up with it as much as I used to, so I don't know every single regulation. Um, well, hardly anyone does, I suppose. You have to have the book of encyclopedic knowledge regulation book with you. But yeah, they've definitely got louder. And I think if they keep changing the regulations slightly every couple of years, I think it'll keep it fresh. If they keep the regulations as they are for, say, 4 years, you're not going to get so much racing, I don't think, because they're not playing that continual game of developing and trying to find that extra tenth.
I think we'll discuss this in a later podcast. But the thing with the regulations is nobody knows what we actually want yet, as such.
That's
We want
true.
racing, but we also want speed.
Yep.
And so it was one of my major things about spec cars. You're not going to get the speed or the development race, which I find just as intriguing as the race.
Yes, definitely.
I might be a Mercedes
Especially when
fan.
you go back to Brawn as well,
Yeah,
when like Braun magically like popping those magical lap times in Barcelona, and everyone's like, "Oh, hang on, this car is good," and then everyone is trying to copy what they've done, and that made that year so exciting. I was at the edge of my seat, and I wanted Jenson Button to win the championship, and I was so nervous because everyone was catching him up by mid-season, but it was so exciting because you didn't know who was going to win a race and you didn't know who was going to win the championship because the development race was that intense.
because I mean we've got to that stage in this season where maybe there's a bit of doubt starting to creep in. Red Bull is starting to pull. Well, Max is trying to pull some good races together.
Yeah.
Like Mercedes have probably got the constructors. The drivers' championship could be close if Hamilton gets
Yeah.
an F somewhere or you know performance.
That's the question because you just don't know when a DNF is going to crop up. And as we get closer to the end of the season, that reliability is getting tested because they've only got so many parts, they've only got so many engines. And like we say, Ricardo, he's going to be due some penalties soon because he's going through everything in his car, unfortunately, which is going to be a bit of a shame. But F1's team sport and everyone's in it together. But you don't want to see cars dropping out through penalties through no fault of, well, drivers through no fault of their own because that's not entertaining. So when that fine balance is quite hard to get into tune, and I think Liberty are trying to listen to what the fans are wanting, as well as trying to listen to what the teams are needing, because some of them are in that financial pothole where they can't get out.
Yeah, because I mean, I think Lando Norris is the other example, I suppose, where nothing technical has gone wrong, like the engine's been fine, but it's gearboxes and brakes and stuff that have been going, so non-technical stuff. And you're
Yeah,
so sorry for him because he's not taking
yeah,
penalties, so it doesn't look bad, but it is bad because the reliability on that McLaren hasn't been strong for him, at least.
no. But also looking back at McLaren the last few years, they've gone leaps and bounds to where they were, and I'm actually really impressed with how they've finally started to become competitive, and Carlos and Lando are just such an exciting driver pair.
Hmm.
But I also wonder what it would be like if they started battling for pole positions. Will that friendship, I say loosely, because we know F1 drivers aren't really friends, they get on well, but once that pole position, they get a sniff of it, they become a completely different animal.
Yeah, but I think McLaren have been my surprise of the season, I guess,
Oh, God, yes, for sure.
into
I
this
agree with
well.
you there.
But then you've got like Haas as in the bad surprise where they've just died.
Yeah.
It's another bad race for them, right?
But don't you think, like, ever since Haas came into F1, there was always that creeping doubt of will they actually justify their position in F1? Because I was always of two minds thinking it's just a bit of, it feels like a bit of a joke that they're there. I don't want no disrespect to anyone that works in that team, but it just feels like they're just making up the numbers, and all the mechanics, engineers, etc. They work their hands to the bone, and clearly they only have limited funds, and then the bits they get from Ferrari, etc. But it just doesn't feel like a proper team. And then you get the two drivers that are battling against each other. They keep taking themselves off the track, which isn't helping their situation as it is anyway. Um, yeah, I don't. They need to up their game and fast, otherwise, I can see them dropping out of F1.
I think the problem with them is like mainly the mechanics and stuff work well because you can't really get that wrong, but they don't
Yeah,
understand the car because it's not their
no,
car. They've brought so many bits from Ferrari, they don't understand the engine, how it works with the aero, anything, which is why they can't figure out what's wrong because they haven't got.
yeah,
There's nobody technical there to go. Well, that's obviously wrong.
yeah, I agree. Because
You
if they
got,
haven't made it in house, they can't actually nail down what potentially could be wrong because they haven't built it in house.
but then Ferrari have got the same problem at the moment, and they don't know what's wrong.
Can tell Ferrari what's wrong. They need to change their structure
Hmm.
because it's just not working for them. Strategy just goes out the window half the time. They don't seem to be able to manage their, I suppose, hierarchical system. And then it's if someone doesn't do what they want them to do, out they go. We'll get some other random person that loves Ferrari in, and then if they don't match up to the job, we'll get rid of them as well. Instead of like looking into what the actual problems are.
It's mad, isn't it? But then the drivers have been scruffy, and of course you saw maybe Seb's biggest
Yeah.
cock up so far of this season with Max.
He got a bit of a boo when he went past us on the start finish straight, I'll tell you that. And Max got a round of applause every time he passed us for the rest of the race. But yeah, that was shambolic.
And that was just driver error, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Vettel's done too many of those. For someone that's supposed to be experienced, he's making too many schoolboy errors.
but people have come back already and gone, the last two races were brilliant for Seb. Two races out of 10, 11.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Bottas has had better performances, and they're saying Bottas should go.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that. It's why I don't. His performance has been solid. Okay, there's been a couple of hiccups, but Mercedes are pretty much, unless they have severe DNFs, are going to win the championship. Bottas has always been a very reliable number two driver for Hamilton, and he's been there to take points when things haven't quite gone right for other people. What are Ferrari doing? They should have Vettel or Charles in second place in the Drivers' Championship, but
Yeah,
they're not even a whisker close to it. They've thrown so many points away, so much so Red Bull is sniffing at the heels.
I'd really be happy if Red Bull got second place this year. I think they deserve it.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially when one driver is performing and the other one, questionable.
That's the thing, isn't it? If Gasly had been performing for the whole of the season and even picking up the sixth place, saying Ferrari got above him, Red Bull would be ahead. But
Exactly.
thrown so many races away, it's just it must be so annoying to be Red Bull. They could be second in both championships,
Yeah.
but Gasly's let them down. Is it completely his fault? Probably not. Second sort of year in F1, straight to the main team. Obviously not done as well as Leclerc. Even Leclerc's not had a great season so far.
Yeah, most of that's been driver error as well, which he has been working on, give him his dues. But I think for the pressures of Ferrari, he's had far too many mistakes for them to accept it.
But they're in a little hole, aren't they? Because they've got no other drivers to go to.
No.
You're not going to go to
Exactly.
Nazi. You're not going to go to Grosjean. Oh my god, you're not going to go to Grosjean.
Remember when we used to talk about Hulkenberg going to Ferrari? That's never going to happen, is it?
Don't see it.
No.
So Hulkenberg's going to go to Haas.
Hulkenberg is never going to get a top drive,
No.
unfortunately.
Same as Perez. They probably both deserved it at some point in their career, and they're just not going to get it.
Well, to be fair, Perez had his chance at McLaren and he blew it, didn't he?
Yeah. But you could say,
But again, was that because he was slightly too young to go into that team? Could be a fair assumption. Maybe give him a couple more years before he got into McLaren. But yeah, you got to be a strong character to be in a top team.
and this is why I hate it when they have a go at Lewis. Like, he come into F1, his first season, he could have won the championship.
Yeah,
That's how mature of a driver he was. Okay, he
yeah,
said things in interviews back then and still does, but people don't appreciate how difficult it is for people like that to come in and be good.
exactly.
Vettel was
And
the same.
they've got to realise he's been working at that since he's a kid. And you take his upbringing into account, he's done amazingly well in that short space of time to become that good with such limited funds and be a minority as well. You've got to bear in mind that this was a sport when he joined that there was still people out there booing him, making derogatory comments about his race, his skin color, all that sort of stuff. Thankfully, that's pretty much long gone. There are the occasional odd pockets of people, but he's actually done an awful lot for the sport. And going back to Silverstone this year, I've seen so many different types of people at the circuit. So one advantage of the engines being a little bit quieter, you've got more families attending with their kids. Unfortunately, I had two young lads next to me, and one was getting really quite bored halfway through and was trying to talk to me all the time when I'm trying to watch the racing. He can't help it because it was probably just about 7 or 8 or something like that. And he was a bit interested to start with, and then he lost interest. It was going on for too long.
Yeah.
And then you see a lot of women that are watching it. A lot of ethnic minorities are watching it. I also met a Canadian that went not a Canadian, sorry, Australian that went to Canada and then came over to Silverstone to watch the race there as well. So we did the Canadian Grand Prix, and for anyone that's interested in going to the Canadian Grand Prix, he says don't do general admission because you can't see anything. So there's a top tip. But when he came to Silverstone, he's like, general admission in Silverstone's brilliant because you get loads of different spots you can like pick, but clearly you've got to be quite early to get the spot that you want. And who else was there? A couple of French people. Last year there was a group of Mexicans that I was talking to. So yeah, you get quite a diverse group of people now at F1 because there's so many different drivers now. It's just opened it up to a lot more people, and I think having younger drivers coming up through the ranks is beneficial in the sense that it's inspiring younger people to get into F1, whether it's through engineering, mechanics, through potentially being a racing driver. Yeah, it's opened up a whole new avenue for a lot of people now.
So I imagine the vibes were good this year as well, being Silverstone got its contract extended.
Yeah, there was a lot of relief when we were told that. Because if you go for the weekend, if you have a weekend ticket for Silverstone, those that have Sky F1 will know they do the F1 show, and they did it on Thursday, which they usually do at Silverstone. So we get access to the grandstands and the start finish straight and watch them doing the F1 show. And when they announced it, the roar was immense. And every year they do the F1 show, there's more and more people that turn up. This year there was just so many people, and the atmosphere was just absolutely amazing. You can't replicate that on TV. You can get a feel for it, but actually being there, it's almost an adrenaline rush.
Yeah. I mean, you could tell this race meant a lot to Hamilton and all the fans. I mean, like you say, you could hear people gasping over the cars.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like when we were queuing up to try and do the track invasion, there were like so many people passionate about it, and I was so excited that we got a British driver that has won. And obviously Lewis Hamilton is like the biggest driver in the UK. It's, you could walk around a circuit and you could pretty much guarantee like probably 50% of people were wearing some sort of Mercedes gear around the circuit. It was a very dominated turnout for the team, and I think they must have sold out of quite a lot of merchandise. But again, I went to the F1 fan zone just to see if they got any Lando Norris merchandise on a Saturday. That was a bit of a schoolboy error because they sold out by Saturday afternoon. So the passion for motorsport, not just for Mercedes, but for British drivers, was very strong at that weekend.
Yeah, you can tell Lando's going to do well in his career, even if he's
Oh God, yeah,
down for a few years. You can see him getting a top drive sooner rather than later.
yeah. Unless
Deserves it.
McLaren actually up their game enough that he doesn't need to move on. But that's as the years go on, it's going to be harder for them to retain him, I think.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll come to that in a different podcast somewhere down the line because, my God, we've got some people to recap over this first half of the season, right?
Yeah, it'll be amazing.
I mean, it's been a mad season, and Silverstone was definitely a highlight. It was, what, halfway through when we've had interesting races? I put in air quotes that obviously people can't see.
Yeah.
Bit of a stinker up till, well, up to here, up to Germany, the last 4 or 5 races.
Yeah, it's been kind of like building into a crescendo, hasn't it? And then we get to Silverstone, and it's like bang! It's just been high intensity racing all weekend.
It's been really good to see. But I think Silverstone definitely is one of those races that you have to attend. Same as I'd put Monza in that bracket, I guess, and Monaco, which we all hate but we love as fans because it is what it is.
I think Monza's definitely a yes. Monaco is one of those you want to tick off and say you've done. I know it was a few years ago, Ted Kravitz on Sky Sports F1 did a kind of how can you do Monaco on a budget like notebook, and there's that big hill where you can bagsy your spot, and I think it's like €50 or something like that to get a spot there. Dangerous as hell, but it's like it's your cheap seat and you get a fairly good view. But it's also the atmosphere, isn't it? When you go to a circuit, it's not just the racing, it's the atmosphere you get from it. And with Monaco, you can go down to France, stay in Nice, get a train, go over to Monaco, which I think is only like a few euros or something like that, and you've got yourself a cheap weekend until you get to the circuit. And if you want a grandstand seat, then you're going to have to pay through the nose. or if you can hire a boat and get a port slot, go for that. But yeah, I think there's quite a lot of flats that just rent out now, and the residents actually just go away somewhere else for the weekend, and then they just rent their flats out for the weekend and make an absolute fortune for fans that want to do the Monaco Grand Prix.
I think that's one of the things with street races. They might not make the best races, but the atmosphere in the city when they happen must be incredible, right?
Yeah, definitely. And there's so much that goes on, and you're actually really close to all the action as well, being as it's a street circuit. Um, and clearly, a lot of deals get done at Monaco because it's at the back end of the Cannes Film Festival as well. So you get a lot of high-profile people coming in from Cannes to go to the Monaco Grand Prix. So you get to see an awful lot of the rich and famous, so to speak, as well as seeing your F1 drivers and potentially being able to get an awful lot of autographs.
Yeah.
I had a friend that went to Monaco a few years ago, bought a program, and I think she managed to get every single driver's signature in the program because she wanted to raise some money for charity. I think it was like Make a Wish Foundation or something. I can't remember. It was quite a few years ago now. But because you can get that close to the circuit and that close to the pit lane, it's easy to get access to some of the drivers to be able to have a conversation, get a selfie, or get an autograph.
Oh, did you find that at Silverstone? Could you have gone and seen drivers? Could you, see them out? Was that a thing?
Um, you've got to know when and where to be, but you can do it. Inside track tickets help now because you can actually go right up to the paddock entrance. There's a little section where you can all stand and you can wait for all the drivers will get dropped off in their cars or whatever, and then just walk through the paddock bits. So you've got to be there quite early to be able to bag a spot to be able to get some autographs. And also it's a good spot to stand during practice sessions or qualifying. If a driver goes off the track, then they've got to be driven back, and that's the only way they can get into the circuit is through the paddock entrance on the inside track. So that's one place you can go to get autographs. Another place is in the F1 fan zone, which is the bit by the Wellington Straight and Luffield. So if you time it right and you know what drivers are turning up, you can stand at the back of the stage area. There's relief road, I'll say that loosely, that they'll drop the drivers off in these cars and then they'll go into the back of the stage, do their talk or whatever they've got to do, and then they'll come back into the car. And if you time when they're going on and off well enough, you can get signatures or selfies and stuff with them as well. And last year, I think people started to cotton on to that and started queuing up when they thought Lewis was going to be turning up, and we managed to get Lewis and Jensen going up onto the fan stage at the same time, and people were almost running in front of the car to try and stop it so they could try and get a selfie, which was a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to time it well. You're better off trying to do it if you get inside track, try and do it during the practice sessions because they'll end up coming out eventually, but you've got to be really patient. There's no point standing at the entrance of the circuit because they don't stop. They've got passes on the screens of the cars, so they know who to let through straight away. So it's literally just like crawl through the entrance and then off they go. So you can't stop them unless you know there's stopping points, and there's only a couple really.
So overall, would you say Silverstone experience is what best out of the calendar?
I would say it's probably top 3 races to attend. It depends what you want out of a weekend, really. Because there's some circuits you'll want to go to because of where it is. So take, for example, the Austin Grand Prix. A lot of people want to go to America. Austin's got an awful lot to offer. If you want to eat until like your bursting. They've got all different types of food. They've got your ribs, steaks, all the sort of traditional sort of American food that you can get your hands on. They've got music bars, so you can get quite a lot of different entertainment out in Austin. And then you've got the racing itself, and the atmosphere there is really good. I've not been, but I know someone that has, and they recommend going to that one. Then you get the creme de la creme for the Ferrari fan, which is Monza.
Yeah.
Again, I know a Ferrari fan that has been to Monza and they've said it blows their mind. And they actually don't mind seeing people not in Ferrari outfits. As you might think, oh, you'll get shot to death if you go in like Mercedes or Red Bull, but they're actually like really friendly. They just love their motorsport, and obviously the Italians are very passionate about their motorsport anyway. But yeah, again, if you want a bit of Italy as well as your F1, I'd do that as a whole experience. The British Grand Prix, I say if you love your motorsport and you don't mind paying that little bit extra for everything else you get into the calendar at that weekend, I would say British Grand Prix is up there as far part of the top three of the motorsporting calendar of F1. But again, it just depends what you want out of it. If you want motorsport, go for F1. If you want the experience, I'd say go for Monza or go to Austin.
I think the nice thing about Silverstone and all the tracks you've sort of mentioned, the tracks themselves are great. There's all different sorts of corners and technical sections, and
Yeah.
you get.
I think,
Them.
yeah, Austin is probably the exception to the rule with all the newer tracks. It is actually a really good technical track. I love watching it anyway whenever we have it on the calendar. And I think it would be a great shame if we ever did lose it. But also you've got your classic European tracks, which offer so much great racing. But you've also got to bear in mind they've had 30, 40, 50 plus years to perfect their circuits, whereas the new ones haven't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you think some of the new ones, can they actually be improved? Most of them probably not. But again, it's what you want out of an F1 weekend is what you go for, and I would recommend people asking questions on Twitter. Use your hashtag F1. See if you can find any F1 fans that have done other circuits. There was someone I knew a few years ago that wanted to do every single circuit in 1 year, so
Wow.
attend every single Grand Prix. I think he saved up over 3 or 4 years. I think that's right. It was an extensive period of time he saved up. He worked really hard, saved every single penny, didn't spend any more than he could, and he actually attended every single F1 race. This is back when Virgin Racing was with us, Marussia. So we're going back quite a few years now. But yeah, it was how you could do it on a budget, and I think it cost him, was it about £10,000 back then? This is before like you added extras for like food and stuff.
That's probably not that bad though. Still.
No, it's probably gone up quite a bit now with inflation and everything. But he was doing cheap flights, cheap accommodation, cheapest tickets. And the advantage of what he did was that there was a lot of us F1 fans that were following him, and we kept tagging him into different teams. And eventually they started to realise, oh, this bloke, I've seen this bloke last weekend, or I saw this bloke 2 weeks ago. And they ended up giving him a paddock pass for an hour to go into the paddock or go and look around a team's garage, because they cottoned on to this person that was very dedicated and went to every single race of the 2000 and can't think what year it was now. Was it 2010, 2011, something like that? So yeah, we're going back quite a few years now, but yeah, he managed to do it. And then he had to stop watching F1 for a while because it just blew his mind.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a bit of a downer after being at every race to.
Yeah. Yeah. What is there to do next when you've done them all?
Yeah. I mean, do you watch the race back, Silverstone, once you've been?
Oh yes, oh yes. This is part of the reason why I take a week and a bit off. Um, so this year I started my holiday on the Monday and I finished it the following Tuesday, so I didn't go back to work until Wednesday. Um, so one, that gives me a chance to like calm down, and two, it gives me a chance to catch up because even though you have big screens all the way around the circuit, so you still see what's going on. You don't get the commentary that you used to. So you get Silverstone 24/7 radio, which there's a couple of commentators on there that will commentate, but it's not quite as good as when you watch BBC or Sky F1, for example,
Mm,
because they're limited to what they can see. They don't have all the other people like the bells and whistles or the runners in a sense that are pointing other stuff out. Is when you get like your commentary with David Croft and Martin Brundle, they actually have someone else in that commentary box with them that will help them out. They'll point something out or write them a little note to say, "Oh, you need to mention that," because Ted Kravitz used to do that back in the ITV days. That's how he got into the job he's doing now. So yeah, they don't have the extensive information as some of the others do. However, you do have the screens to keep you in the loop, and they do put the timing screens on, so you get an idea of where everyone is, but you still miss things, and sometimes it's actually nice just to re-watch it, and you get a feel of how the race has progressed because all the cameras follow all the cars around, and sometimes you get distracted by the helicopter going over, like trying to film one of the cars going around the circuit, and there's so much sensory information. Sometimes you do miss things because it just kind of blows your mind because there's so much going on.
mm.
But yeah, you kind of got, if you go to the circuit, at least do watch the highlights just to see if there's anything you've missed, because more often than not there will be something you've missed. And if you can watch the whole race over, it's good to try and spot where you are. Like, I
I was
was
gonna
there,
say,
or
do you look for
I can see
yourself?
my tent. Yeah, I look for my tent. I decorate my car with checkered flags.
Ah,
So I because they do quite a lot of shots over the woodlands campsite where we're at. Last year, my other half was actually took a photo of me looking at the TV, trying to find my tent because I was that sad. But I don't care. I have no shame.
because I take it your race experience is quite different. Because as we can see on screen, you're taking photos as well as watching the race. I imagine
Yes, so
gets
I'm
awkward. I
quite
imagine.
yeah, I'm quite a keen photographer, and I have half decent camera, but it is expensive to buy extra lenses. So I kind of use the whole Silverstone experience to hone my skills. And what I tend to do is just get one lens, and that'll be my only lens for the whole weekend, just to like try and get my eye in with taking pictures of F1 cars and F2 cars and F3. So the ones you see on there, that was FP1 at Stowe. So to start with, I was a bit out of touch with taking pictures because I hadn't done it for a while. But it also kind of adds to the experience because you're paying attention to not only what you're looking through at the lens, but you're actually not looking through the lens for a lot of the time as well because you're looking for when the cars are coming around the circuit. So you'll pay attention to where everyone is on the grid. You'll try and pay attention to the commentary as well, so you can hear if someone's come off the track. So you know when the next driver's coming around. So you'll know when Lando Norris is coming around the corner. You know when Lewis is coming around the corner. And one example was Bottas went round first, and then Lewis was behind him. So if you just wanted to spend a couple of laps taking pictures of Lewis, you use Bottas as your sighter. You could
Yeah,
look out for when he's gone past, but keep your camera pointing at where you want to take a picture. So there you can see Bottas like right in front of me. I was trying to like get different angles of where they were, so you could look away from your camera, look to where the car's coming around, and then time it with your lens. And half the time I wasn't actually looking through my camera because I'm looking to see when the next car's coming. So you can time your lens to get them in frame and they're not blurred. So there's a bit of a skill to it, but it's good fun. It adds to the experience. But when you get to Grand Prix weekend, Sunday, the camera gets put down most of the time because you want to watch
Yes.
everything. So I use FP1, FP2, and FP3 as my picture taking times, and then qualifying and the race, the camera gets put aside, and I'm actually watching everything. So it all kind of adds to the experience.
I should say there are many more photos than this, and they are all this great. And we'll try and get them up on the Discord at some point, or in some form, so other people can see everything that you've taken a picture of.
Yeah,
Absolute belters.
I have to say, the ones that I've posted on my Google Drive, those were the ones that I wanted to put there. I
Yes.
will reiterate now, when you get a big memory card or get several memory cards, if you want to take lots of pictures at Silverstone or any race, you will take far too many. You will take a lot of that are out of focus. But that's the joy of digital photography, because you can just keep clicking and clicking until you get your skill in and be able to take pictures of decent quality. And it took me a few Grand Prix to be able to get to this standard, because obviously I can't afford to go to lots of races. So once a year, this is my skill.
Because there are some stunning ones, and I say there's some of the red arrows, there's some of the fans.
Oh, I was very lucky with the red arrows. Last year I was at Cops last year. And they kept going over the covering, because we were covered in the grandstands, so it was hard to get some pictures. This year I managed to get a seat on the front row of Abbey, so I was able to see all the red arrows, like doing all their different tricks. And because I've seen them do it for a few years in the running now, you kind of know what move's going to be coming next, or you know what to be looking for. So yeah, part of it is a bit of luck, and part of it is a bit of experience to be able to get the photos you want to get.
I mean, yeah, we will try and get them up there, because there are some cracking pictures. You've done a job.
Thank you.
And I guess at this point we should really start cutting the podcast short, because I did promise John it'd be 30 minutes. We've gone on for nearly an hour.
A little bit longer.
A little bit. It's all right. He's rendering it. It's okay. It's all up to him. But I think if people have got questions, are you happy to answer them on Twitter? If people tag you?
Oh yeah, of course. If they want to send me any questions, at Mookie is where to find me on Twitter. If you can see the screen now, you can see like my social media, so you can find me on Twitch, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. But I'm more than happy to take questions now, or even when it gets close to the British Grand Prix next year, more than happy to take them.
And I do believe you've become a more permanent member of the podcast, so you should be more often.
Yes, you've been kind enough to let me terrorise your earlobes even more after the guest appearance last week covering for Lard, and yeah, get to hear more of me, you lucky so-and-sos.
Excited?
Oh god, yeah, I love talking F1. It's nice to be able to talk F1 with people that actually like talking F1, rather than the ones that just like, oh yeah, I watch it on a Sunday and then I get bored and then I go cook Sunday dinner or something. It's like, yeah, it's nice talking to people that actually appreciate it. And I get there's people out there that don't get it and just think it's just cars going around in a circuit and just kind of like IndyCar, but it isn't.
Yeah.
So listen to us. We'll enlighten you.
Well, we'll try. We're no professional, but as you can go on and on and on.
Oh, I don't shut up. Once you get me going, I don't shut up. I'm sorry. You have to cut me off now and then.
But we love it. We absolutely love it. And I definitely want to try and get to Silverstone next year, and maybe we can do something.
Yeah, maybe we could do like a podcast special at Silverstone.
That would be my old idea was the cars.
We'll time it when there's a bit of a break.
Because even at the campsite, I imagine you can hear the cars.
Oh yes, when I won't go on, but on the Thursday when I pulled up, it was probably about the Thursday, no Wednesday. Can't remember. Oh, I get confused now. When I pulled up, it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and the Brawn actually went out on track, because I knew Jensen was going to be driving his Brawn. It was Thursday. He went down on Thursday, and you could hear that Brawn going around a circuit, and it was just immense. But it's lovely just waking up. If you if you're not an early riser, it's lovely waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning and then you hear the F2 or the F3 cars going round, and it's just like, yeah, I'm home.
Oh dear. So we might return with another sort of podcast like this if people are interested. But if not, sorry we've wasted an hour, but we've enjoyed it. So sod you.
Yeah, tough. We'll talk about it anyway.
So thank you for appearing, Mook. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Will.
And hopefully we shall get to see you more often.
Thank you.
And until next time, or whenever, we shall say goodbye.
Bye.